Hi.
Hi.
Good. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing good.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me here.
Of course, it was my pleasure.
Yeah, great. For anybody watching or watching afterwards, you can add comments on YouTube and Facebook. If you're watching live, you can add comments and we can ask them as we go along. And go ahead and like the video if you have a chance on Facebook or YouTube. That'd be great. But that being said, I think we can go ahead and introduce our guest today. So, our guest today is Nashra Mohammed. And Nashra Mohammed is 21 years old and is currently attending DePaul University, where she is obtaining a major in Management Information Systems and minoring in Community Service. She has worked with organizations such as Feed My Starving Children, the Chicago Coalition of the Homeless, and the Humanity Project. Over the course of summer 2020, Nashra worked with Northwestern University to establish an efficient way to provide basic civic education and facilitate voter registration. Nashra is currently the youngest board member for the Chicago Area Peace Action Organization, the founding member and president of Ignite DePaul, and she also serves on the environmental committee for the village of Lincolnwood and the Dean Student Advisory Board at DePaul University. So that's a lot. It's quite clear you've been involved in several different charity groups organizations in the last few years. Can you tell us maybe what motivated you to work with them and what experience you took away from working with them?
Definitely. So my initial interest in community service started when I was in high school. Throughout high school, I volunteered at various soup kitchens, and I worked very closely with the Chicago Coalition of the Homeless. I was very involved with a local organization called the Humanity Projects. That was actually one of my very big stepping stones. I went on a trip to Haiti over there, and that's really when I realized how passionate I was about serving my community and serving people. Um, I overall, I believe that my interest in community service started when I was transitioned from being a CPS student to a Niles West student. So for people that may not know, I went to a public school in Chicago that was extremely underfunded, and then we moved to a high school with more money. And being a former student of CPS, I saw the inequality of education students received. As I continued to adjust, I became very frustrated. I was struggling myself, and that's when I decided that I wanted to do something about it. Overall, I realized that if there was one problem I could solve, it would definitely be to fix the state of Illinois' unconscionable discrimination against Chicago public school students. But of course, being a citizen of Lincolnwood, I wanted to use my experiences to be a leader of change in my district first. So that's really what kind of propelled me even more. I was a work in progress, and I believe that my experiences as a person that just passed the system made me very competent to be on the board of education. And so I ran for office at the age of 18. And my first campaign, really made me realize how passionate I am about education reform. So that's really kind of my first step towards actually doing something in that sector. But throughout my first campaign, I was very lucky and fortunate to be able to work with more organizations. I am on the board of CAPA, Chicago Area Peace Action, and we do tons of activism work in terms of climate change policy and foreign policy. We also have a student network at the local universities in the Chicagoland area where we propel and educate young people of my age to continue doing what they can for their community.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And can you tell us? So you ran for public office at the age of 18, and you also recently ran this last spring. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about your experience running for office. Maybe any advice that you'd have to young people who might be thinking about doing it as well, and what kind of experiences you took away from it.
Of course. So my first campaign, I was 18, no experience whatsoever, no experience in organizing, no experience in project managing. I was actually just starting to adjust to university life. So it was very, very difficult for me my first time. I started off, the first thing I did was I made a list of people I had to talk to. It was a very messy list. It was a list of local elected people, trustees, mayors, so it was very rough. I many people, a lot of people who obviously doubted me. As an 18-year-old, you're telling these very accomplished older people that you want to run for the same position that they were once sitting in 5 years ago. I mean, it's definitely a challenge to kind of make yourself look like you can do it. But every day as I did the work, I realized, my passion towards the mission kept getting stronger and stronger. There were days that I felt like no matter what I did, my to-do list was not getting smaller. I was the campaign manager. I was, the I had to make sure I was, marketing my, campaign on all forms of social media. I had to make sure I was taking the pictures for myself in order to create these marketing, graphics for my social media. So there was definitely so many different aspects that I had to do all by myself. And, it changed me as a person. It made me realize my endurance. It made me realize, how much I can do once I know how passionate I was about something, if that makes sense. So I lost my first election by a couple hundred votes. I believe it was like 200. I'm not exactly sure. And ever since I lost, my way of interpreting failure changed. I before that I used to always hold myself back, from applying to certain programs because I felt like I wasn't good enough. But when I ran, I put all of my self doubts aside, and by doing that, I not only changed my mindset for that campaign, but I started giving myself a chance. And so my first failure uh, motivated me to do it again. I didn't want to give up. I was 200 votes, 300 votes away, and I felt like, maybe this time I can actually do it. Um, so there was a 1 year gap during that period. During that 1 year gap, I worked with Northwestern University. I know you mentioned in my introduction, which was amazing, by the way. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I worked with Northwestern to improve civic education and facilitate voter registration to DePaul University. I became one of action. I started a club at DePaul called Ignite DePaul, which I am the president of, and basically our mission was to encourage other young women to do the same. To give themselves a chance, and our club was basically there to provide that space for them. In addition to that, I became the recipient of the Community Service Scholarship at DePaul University, where I am mandated to do 90 hours of community service hours a year. And so that also very much, immersed me in, who it was that I wanted to become. So I wasn't just sitting around that year. I was doing a lot of work. And so this past year, my second election, I ran for a smaller village. My first time I ran on a township level, and this time I ran on a village level. And I lost my election by 18 votes. So it was a very small margin that I lost by, and I was running as an independent against two parties. One party was incumbents, and they already had this. They were, they've been board members of that position for the past couple of years. So they had a lot of support, initial support, way considering they were older, more experienced, more seasoned. And then there were four other people that ran for the first time, and they were also adults. They were parents. They were, they had jobs. They were definitely on a way different level than I was. So, even though I was running for one of that seat, there was a lot of competition. And there were times that I felt like I should not even do it because it was just, I felt like I was going to embarrass myself. I mean, there's two huge parties running against me, and I'm running as an independent with no money, basically. I mean, people running on slates, raised way more money than I had done. Um, And so it was very nerve-wracking, but I did not let that stop me. I instead used my previous campaign to kind of teach me what I did wrong and what I did right. And this time I manage everything better. I definitely can say that I did lose by a smaller margin, so you can definitely see how well I did compared to my first time. And so I don't plan on giving up anymore, because I feel like maybe next time I'll lose by 10. And then maybe the time after that, I'll lose by 5. And, one day I won't lose. So that's really how my mindset works when it comes to running for positions I believe in.
I mean, it sounds to me like you're getting stronger, not just with like the number of votes that you're receiving, but just in general as a person, with the experience that you're gaining, and um, just in general as you develop in life, with your experience with these other groups that you're volunteering with. Yeah, it just sounds like you're getting stronger to me. So.
Definitely. But I do want to add one more thing. And I like to say this in all of the webinars and all of the people I talk to. A lot of the times people don't take a chance on themselves because, it's scary. And, it takes a lot of energy and time and money out of you in order to put yourself in, certain ideas and certain positions. And, you're not going to ever become strong if you don't take the chance to actually feel weak in that process. You know, Filing my papers my second time, I was at the office in downtown and I was so scared. I was shaking and I was like gonna walk away. I did not want to do it. But in that moment, I forced myself. And that was like, that was me kind of getting stronger, like step by step by step. And I know the next time I probably file my papers, I'm going to be scared for sure. But I'm probably not going to be as scared as I was my first time. So that's just what I like to say. You have to take a chance on yourself to not be scared. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I think that's really good advice in general, because I think like overcoming that fear is one of the first hardest parts of doing any type of work when it comes to running for office or other activism, or pursuing any type of dream you might have in general. Definitely. I want to transition a little bit and I want to go back. So you worked with Northwestern University to register first-time voters, and
Yes.
I want to kind of ask you what that was like as an experience, and if you can maybe comment in general on this process that first-time voters go through, especially young people, because I know it's a very complicated process as a first-time voter to understand what you're supposed to be doing. But for college students in particular, it's also an added challenge being sometimes away from their home state or their home county.
Definitely. So this was before Biden got elected. And voting in young people has always been an issue. Even, I experienced that firsthand. I did, I knocked on so many doors. I texted so many of the people I went to high school with to see if they would vote for me. And, a lot of them didn't. And a lot of them didn't really have that interest in, voting and being involved in, your right, you know. So first and foremost, I saw that students were uniquely susceptible to a large number of barriers while voting, and I wanted to find a solution. You know, there was already a barrier in young people of like, not engaging in the local political arena by not voting because they just didn't feel like their vote mattered. They felt like, their voice really didn't mean anything. And, as a young person, I can definitely tell you, people don't have that interest. There's other things to focus on. It's very, very hard to include yourself to do that. So that was already the first mental initial barrier. The second one in students is, they're all students out of state. Like it's a very difficult process, getting that paper, requirement, filing your residency. I mean, it's just, there were so many barriers. And I felt that, there should be an efficient way to provide that civic education. I felt like universities should have already done that to, encourage students to vote. And I thought that was already a thing until I found out there wasn't. So, as I did my research with my colleagues and with Northwestern, I found out that, yeah, universities do encourage students to vote. They send an email to students a couple weeks before, the elections, just telling them to register. I mean, an email isn't going to really do anything, it's not that effective. And, even the stats show that it wasn't that effective. So we went through the information, we went through the statistics, and, me and my team created a case for DePaul. And I worked with Northwestern, I worked with a professor at DePaul to create a program in which are required to attend a seminar to learn about voter registration and the whole process, and basically providing basic civic education. And we got a grant from Northwestern, and it all worked out just in time for the election. I see we have a question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the question was, how did you convince students that the vote does matter? Like, it's not just the systemic barriers in place when it comes to voting, but it's also like kind of a mental aspect for, I think, first time voters. Is like, how did you convince them? What your vote does matter, what you do does matter.
Definitely. So I would consider the mental barrier the biggest barrier of them all. So in that moment, I'm going to be honest with you guys, we didn't really convince students that their vote matters. We just that kind of system for them to be exposed to it just entering college. So in that way, their mindset was fresh, and that's the first thing they were exposed to on orientation. And that's just, it just kind of settled in their brain. So we taught like these seminars basically taught these first year students how to register to vote, how to get your absentee ballot if you want to vote in your home state. And it was like, different for each state. The students were divided up very, very strategically to make that happen and make that possible. But yeah, during these seminars, these student trainers basically encouraged and obviously very much encourage these students to kind of perform their civic duty, because at the end of the day, you're 18, your vote matters, and that's a privilege that not a lot of people have in other countries. So that's just really how we did it. We just kind of just threw it at them their first during the orientation.
I think this kind of have to do it because civic duties, like they have to be taught, right? They're not inherently just known. And I think that, in general, I think that in America can do a better job of teaching that at an earlier age, because I think it does often occur where college students don't know the process and they don't know how it works. And I remember when my first vote when I was 18, and it happened exactly in the way that you're describing. Is I was at some random event and somebody came up to me who was part of a group, I'm sure, that was looking to register voters, and they literally were just like, "Are you registered to vote? Do you want to vote?" And I said, "I didn't know I had to do that." Like, here right now, like I thought I was already registered.
Exactly. That's what a lot of students thought too.
Yeah. You think it's automatic. And, I'm located over in Germany right now, and it is automatic in Germany. You are automatically registered no matter where you move, blah, blah, blah. You get a ballot in the mail, and it just happens. So I think it's a really great system. But, like, for students in the United States, they need to be taught how it works, and they need to learn the process. And I think universities, high schools could be doing a much better job of that.
1,000%. I just wanted to add one more thing on that. You're very fortunate to live in a country where the system, in the United States, there are barriers, kind of stopping certain people of certain areas, of certain backgrounds to not vote. So there's already those barriers and those challenges that, certain people have to kind of overcome. It's not a very it's not a very easy process for everyone. That's what I want to say. So it's very important that first and foremost, universities kind of take a step towards making sure to expose students to this their first year, so they do it for the next 4 years, for the rest of their life, basically. I feel like once universities and institutions start kind of taking a step towards making voting and making civic education more accessible for students, then maybe, local government will kind of see that dynamic and start to change as well. So that's really the goal at the end of the day.
Definitely. Yeah, I think the largest barrier with voting is, I think the data shows this too, is that once you vote for the first time, it becomes a habit and you start
Yes.
doing it more regularly. It's really getting over that kind of first vote, maybe second vote, especially in an off year. It's learning that, I think that's just the biggest barrier in the United States right now when it comes to getting the percentage of people who are voting up. Um, I also wanted to quickly ask about you also founded the local chapter of Ignite in DePaul. That's correct?
Yes. Yes.
Can you maybe tell us a little bit about that as well? Just about the organization and then kind of what inspired you to do that?
Of course. So my freshman year of college, when I was first running for District 219 school board in my township, I went to a lot of networking events. I met a lot of people, and I was very fortunate enough to meet these people. And one of the people that I met was one of the advisors for this organization in the Chicagoland area. And she was like, you know what, DePaul doesn't have a chapter. I would love for you to start one. She kind of explained to me the organization's mission. And, you know, the mission was so similar to like what I was going through myself. Um, you know, sh- Meeting her and attending these events that she did for people around the Chicagoland area. I mean, I had wished that I had that when I was way younger. So that's really what propelled me to start the chapter at DePaul University. I wanted students to find a comfortable place for them to feel kind of motivated and confident enough to run for office and to apply for higher positions. Oftentimes, I was reading an article a couple weeks ago, and you know, when a man and when a woman apply, I'm not sure if it was an article or if it was a post on Facebook or Instagram, but it was like, when a man applies for a position within the workplace, it won't really pass his mind. But when a woman applies for a certain position, she thinks of every factor, that would not make her qualified, and that's what kind of doesn't motivate her to apply, if that makes sense. And so I just, I feel like as women, it's really important that there is a place of support for women. And I feel like if I had that way early on, I would definitely have been more more smarter, more passionate, and it's really important to have a community. It's really important to have a community that motivates you and pushes you. And so that's really what I wanted to create. I wanted to create a community for women to motivate them and push them and provide any advice that I could on behalf of my own experience.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's really important what you say about community because, I talked to a few other people who've also run for office in the U.S. and other young people, and one of the reasons why they were motivated to do so was absolutely that they were part of a community and the community encouraged them to do it or supported them in that run. And I think that's a huge factor for young people to feel comfortable in pursuing higher dreams and bigger dreams and reaching farther. And I think like having a community of not just of other young people around you is also important.
Like-minded
Yeah,
people.
like-minded people. Yeah, exactly.
Definitely. The people you surround yourself with, they can either bring you up or bring you down. And so I really think that's important, and I want to continue to make sure that I am constantly helping people, women around me, to if they don't have to be interested in local politics, they don't have to be interested in politics at all, but if they want to pursue their career, and if they want to pursue a higher position in their career, I want to be able to give them the motivation and what they need mentally to let them and make them feel confident enough to apply for that. That's very important. As women, there's so many things bringing us down, and even in my own experience, right? I work in corporate, and oftentimes I am the only woman in my department, and oftentimes I have to be very conscious of my position, and I have to be very conscious of what comes out of my mouth, because I have to prove to these people, I have to prove to my peers that I am capable. It's just like a mental thing for me. And so I think it's really important that women have that support needed. It's really important.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's just such a extra level of competency that we have to achieve as women. I absolutely feel that. Like, you have to prove a competency beyond what is normal, I think, for men, which is unfortunate. And I'm glad that we're working to, or you're also working to move beyond that. Um, okay, one last question before we kind of end. Um, I'm just reading it quick. Do you encourage young people to incorporate life experiences in lieu of or addition to their experience/education when applying for positions of running for office?
Of course,
Yeah.
1,000%. I actually ran when I was 18. My baseline for my campaign was that, my name is Nashra Mohammed, and I am running because I'm a recent graduate of this high school. Qualified. That was my line to on for every door that I knocked on. Some people were turned off by it, some people loved it. But I did not want to kind of erase myself. I didn't want to hide my age and hide who I really was, just to run for this certain position. A lot of people advised me in the beginning to look older in my pictures, to not really mention that I'm in college, kind of keep that down low. And I didn't think that was okay. My whole campaign revolved around my age. Even this last campaign, I feel like a board makes up of people that bring in different qualifications, right? There's someone that could bring in the qualification of being a lawyer. There's someone that could bring in the qualification of being an accountant. And those are all very, very important factors for a board, especially for the Board of Education. But I feel like there shall also be a seat on that table for someone who is young, for someone who is not a mom, for someone who has recent experience, current experience being a student in today's age and time. That is very important to me. And yeah, a lot of these school boards around the country, they push the fact that they have, student organizers sitting there kind of giving their presentations on a month-to-month basis on what the school is doing, but they don't have a voting right. They can't vote. They can't vote on certain things for the school. So really, what is that doing? You know what I mean? So that's really what I want. That's really how I ran my campaign. I feel like young people have a very unique experience. And, especially running for the Board of Education, I feel that, as a young person, I have experience in being a student in today's age and time. I know with the new technology around me, I know how to work certain things people that are a little older than me probably don't. It's a completely different experience working with the technology that we're working with compared to, you know, kind of learning to use certain things when you're older in the workforce, if that makes sense. So, I just feel like young people provide a totally different perspective, totally different background, and it's important that you highlight that. It's important to incorporate all of your life experiences. A lot of the times when I used to knock on doors, I used to always say, I'm not a mother, but I am a student. And, a lot of people voted for me because I said that. They felt that it was important to have that different perspective on the board.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we at the United States Youth Forum feel very similar, that it's really important to center young people within that dialogue space because they're having the lived experience in real time.
Yes.
Is really important, and it's really good. And it's really important to feel for young people not to be patronized and like here's your seat at the board, and it's a little bit like sitting at the kids' table where you don't have
Yeah.
actually any authority or power or vote there. It's very patronizing, I think, to send us
Yeah.
off to the kids table and not include us at the adult table.
Definitely. And I feel like if we want to move forward in, a space where we have, we have students getting educated, in a, things are changing. Our world is changing by the minute. And I think it's really important that we adapt to that.
Absolutely.
It's not necessary for someone on the school board to be sitting on that seat for 24 years because a lot has changed in that 24 years. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, it's important. I feel like the only way to move forward is to adapt. That's what I love. I'm an MIS major, so I work with, I work in IT, and I have to constantly adapt to new applications that I use. You have to adapt. That is the only way to grow. And I feel like the only way we're going to adapt is if we give, people in this generation a chance. That is the only way. So that's what I want to say. In local politics, local activism, as a young person, it is your duty to do what you believe in and not just kind of sit back and let others make the decision for you. That was my biggest motivation throughout my entire career. I didn't think it was okay for someone for me to not have a voice in certain things. I sit on the environmental committee in the village of Lincolnwood, and I am one of the youngest members on that committee. And so it's really interesting to see everyone else's perspective. And there's a very, very everyone has different experiences, but it's important to give young people a chance. That's just what I want to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Fully agree with you. So I just want to say thanks again for joining us here and for telling us about your experiences, not just running for office, but working with voter registration and with Ignite and all these other perspectives that you have as a young person. And I am not sure if you want us to link anything in our YouTube description, any links to Ignite or any other organizations that you're involved with, we can certainly do that. Otherwise, I just want to say thanks again so much for joining me today. It was a really, really good conversation.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate being given the opportunity to share my story and share my experiences. And, at the end of the day, this is really what I want. I want to make sure to use my experiences to help the young generation grow and, feel like they're capable. Most important part. So thank you for giving me that space. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will be I will be putting in my social medias below. And yeah, I really, really appreciate it. And then for Ignite, it's gonna be I look forward to engaging with you again. I would love to, update you, as I'd like to say. And then so I'm also putting in the other organization that I sit on the board of called Chicago Area Peace Action. The website has all the information, so I would love for you guys to kind of learn more about it. And also, one more last thing, we have a fall benefit coming up next week on Thursday. And if you are interested, it's on Zoom. And so you can join from Germany or Australia or London. So I would love for you guys to join us on that event. It would be amazing.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much for telling us about that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I look forward to engaging with you again.
Yeah, me too.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.